Welcome back to the Guardian Project Podcast, episode 159. I'm your host, Andy, and I'm convinced that there's a magic card based on the scary movie Chucky. The card is Spirit and Doll.
Oh, that's funny. That's really funny.
Spirits inside the doll.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. Is it a stuffy doll? I don't know.
Who knows?
And I'm your other host, Mike, and I am so excited for Command Fest Indy. I've been ordering copies of Goblin Dynamo to give out to people because you can't spell Goblin Dynamo without Indy. It's actually the only card in Magic with Indy in it. It's the IN at the end of Goblin and the DY at the beginning of Dynamo. Indy. I know, it's a stretch.
Did you spend a lot of time researching that?
No, you were here as I was struggling to come up with an intro today, so this is what I was able to cobble together.
Please listen carefully.
And this is the podcast about Commander.
Our favorite Magic the Gathering format.
So you might have noticed, we're trying different taglines, okay? We're workshopping them. And this is the podcast all about Magic the Gathering, you know, is fine. But it's so generic, and it doesn't feel special anymore. So it's been something that I have been bothering Mike about it's been like a year.
It's been a long time.
And I finally said, we're going to do it.
Just going to start
so
coming up
we're
with
gonna
some
workshop.
things.
So if anybody has suggestions for new taglines, also send them our way. But let us know. Let us know what you think if we just got you there, because you didn't realize what show it was. Because of our tagline there.
That's right. So we have a couple news topics to go over. We have your Love Your LGS coming back. So we've had this happen in the past, a promotion to buy product from your local game stores. So beginning July 1st, you can claim a foil retro frame promo Soul Ring.
It's hot.
Yeah, if you spend at least $50 US on Magic the Gathering at your WPN local play store. So if you are going in to pick up your Double Masters product, or maybe you are celebrating a Double Masters launch party, if your LGS is having one of those, make sure that you pick up at least $50 worth of product to get that special Soul Ring. And yeah, I know, Andy, I know not everyone loves that old frame on the artifacts, but they've printed so many of them. I think you could have like a whole 5-color deck now with just those old frame artifacts. So.
You probably could. I personally don't like them, but I also just like foils.
That's
so
fair.
I can see past the dirty brown frame because it's a shiny dirty brown frame. It's fine.
Shiny dirty brown frames.
Shiny dirty browns. That's what I'm gonna call a deck when it's all just old border and foil.
It's a disgusting deck name, and I can't wait. I can't wait to play against it so I can write it. I can write it down.
I'm sorry, everyone.
Write it down on my commander tracker
as the theme.
Yes.
As the theme, shiny dirty brown.
That's right.
Disgusting. Oh, I apologize for that, everyone. While you're in, actually, if you are going to one of those Double Masters events, we're also getting a Weathered Wayfarer and Bring to Light promo, so those are cool. Weathered Wayfarer is actually a really good card, and I play Bring to Light in my Gates deck. So actually, I have a home for both of these. Do you play either of those cards?
I used to play Bring to Light in like my 5-color humans deck and stuff, but then I just ended up taking, like, I still play Sisay, both Sisays that can tutor, and I figured that's enough tutoring for a deck, so I don't play Bring to Light there, but I used to. It's always a really good tutor in a 5-color deck, like very, very strong. The fact that the permanent comes straight onto the battlefield is so good.
Nice. Well, I also want to chat about something that friends of the show, Anthony and Andy and Jet from Lucky Paper Radio, they were on our show just a couple of months ago when we swapped shows, right? So we did Cube on our show, on the Commander show, and then they did Commander on the Cube show. Today they actually got to publish the Commander map, which they've been working on. We got to talk about that with them a couple of months ago, just to hear that they were working on it, which was very exciting. So they created one in the past, and it was a cube map. So it kind of takes all the data that was on Cube Cobra and displays it in in a way that you can see cubes that are related to each other, have similar cards. You can kind of make connections between cards that are shaped by context rather than the aspects of individual cards themselves. And it went live today and has seen it's gotten a lot of attention. Lots of people on Twitter were super excited to see it. So it was really cool to look at. And just so everybody knows, they're using the same data that comes from edhrec.com. So it collects from a bunch of different sources to pull these decks. And I believe when I was reading their article, and there's actually a podcast on it. So if you listen to Lucky Paper Radio's episode this week, that actually came out. Actually, I think it came out today. It might have come out yesterday as the time that we're recording this. They were like, there's 1.2 million decks included in this map. So it's a ton of data that comes from edhrec.com sources. So things like AetherHub, Arcadeck, Deck Stats, Moxfield, MTG Goldfish. So all that stuff. And you can take a peek. You can look for a commander or a theme, and then you can zoom in and you can see how decks and commanders and themes relate to each other. I've had a good time just searching up all my commanders to see one where they just fall on the map and how either large they are, how much of the map they take up, or how little, just to see how few there are. It's really cool. So if you haven't checked it out, we will have links to the map below in the show notes. There's also a nice little write-up that's far more technical than I would ever go, where they talk about lots of triangles that they have to make squares and things. So there's lots of scientific things that are not for me, because I was a communication major and then I went into marketing.
Hey, I'm interested in science. I should check that out.
Exactly. So the first commander that I looked at, and I sent it over to Anthony, was Niambi Esteemed Speaker, which is wild because when you look up Niambi, that has 365 decks, it's right next to Shorikai Genesis Engine, and then also a few Taigam Ojutai Master decks. So I thought that was wild seeing the Taigam pop in there, but seeing Shorikai doesn't really surprise me, because Shorikai also has you draw and discard. So you could, I guess, play Shorikai Reanimator like you do with Niambi Reanimator. I'm not sure how Taigam fits in, but it's possible it could just be like Taigam, and maybe this one deck that's in this cluster is a historic deck.
Well,
I'm not
maybe
sure.
your reanimation spells are instants and sorceries, and Taigam can rebound them, so you get double value for your reanimation spells.
That's entirely possible. And there's a few Wrath Capuchin decks shoved in here, which
Flash.
Also is Flash, and then also historic spells, so legendary spells. Things are so it's really cool. I got to take a look at Niambi. What was the first thing you looked up when you took a peek at the map?
So I have been doing a lot of looking at individual maps. So you can I've been looking at the new Baldur's Gate commanders that have choose a background, and you can generate a map just for the particular commander that you plug in. And when you do that with one of the Baldur's Gate ones, it shows you all the different backgrounds that people are pairing up with that particular legendary creature in their different areas and stuff. So I looked up Bailiff Baratel because I wanted to see how many Master Chef decks there were versus Raised by Giants, because I knew the color combination was right. But then you see all of the red-white decks for the Noble Heritage, and even some people doing Flame Fist or something like that. I don't remember exactly what that background is, but it was really cool to see it kind of spread out in the different color combinations. The red-green did stand out to be the most, with the red-blue at second most, and red-blue being the color combination of the precon. Made total sense. So everything that I saw kind of made sense to me, but it was really cool to see it just like spread out in a very appealing visual format. But I didn't put it into the context of the 1.2 million decks to see where they fit in comparison to that. So I look forward to continuing to delve into that. I so far I've looked at it through a magnifying glass, and I can't wait to look at it through a telescope too.
The Hubble telescope.
Yes, seriously.
Is that the most famous telescope in existence, you think?
I mean, I would imagine it is the most famous telescope, yeah.
That one, and the one that it's a telescope, right? That Captain Jack Sparrow uses. That's called a telescope.
I honestly was going to say I bet more people know about Captain Jack Sparrow's like super giant long telescope than knows about the Hubble Space Telescope, which is sad in my opinion, but I bet that's actually
one has
true.
good music in their movie, and the other one
there's no
just a telescope that sees
there's no
really far into space. Who knows?
There's no noise up there, so there's no music. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. You can't hum "He's a Pirate" for 14 hours after talking about the Hubble. But if you talk about pirates, you will sing "He's a Pirate" for days. No, so after looking at this though, we might just have an episode next week. Who knows? Looking at this commander map and diving into our own decks, because I don't want to spoil everything. But looking at some of the decks that I run, I am seeing lots of clusters around other decks, and I go, how is this even? I don't understand how they're similar. And then it clicked. So there's a lot of information that we can glean from this, and it's just a different way of thinking about some of your decks. So if you didn't have a chance, go check it out. Lucky Paper Radio. Thank you all for putting this together. It's really, really cool. But before we continue, we have some people to thank. Thank you, everybody who listens to us every week, especially our patrons. We really appreciate all of your support. We've got lots of cool stuff, and we are prepping for Indie this coming, well, not even this coming week. We're prepping for Indie this week because Command Fest Indie is happening this weekend. So if you are one of our patrons or you're in our Discord and you want to meet us, please come and just stop us and say hello. We want to play games all weekend and meet lots of people from across the US, and if you're coming internationally, we want to meet everybody actually across the globe. So if you will be in Indianapolis, please come chat with us. We're hoping to meet everybody this weekend. And if you're looking for a way to support the podcast, you can head to patreon.com/guardianprojectpod and donate for any dollar amount.
And if you're looking for another way to support the podcast or an additional way to support the podcast, whatever you are enjoying the podcast on now, if you could subscribe, rate, review, and leave comments, we would be most appreciative. We would even take those comments in person at Command Fest Indie. We will write them down, make brand new YouTube accounts, comment them on the YouTube videos for you, give you the login information for those YouTube accounts, and then you'll have them there. You're welcome.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say we'll go and we'll post all your comments to our own video from our own page.
I was thinking that, and that would look weird.
That's really funny.
That would look weird.
That's really funny, though, if people would think that we're trying to boost the algorithm of YouTube. But no one knows how it really works anyway, so who cares? But if you are looking to find us online or anywhere else that isn't on the fine sound waves in which you are listening to us today, you can find us on YouTube. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. Just search Guardian Project Podcast online. We will pop up. We are, in fact, #1 when you look us up. And you can email us if you have any questions or you want to suggest something for us to talk about on the show. You can email guardianprojectpod@gmail.com. Mike, what are we chatting about this week?
Well, this week it's Spirit Week, and that doesn't mean like what it meant when you were in high school where you got to wear pajamas on Wednesdays and wacky clothes on Thursdays. No, this week we are going to talk about all things creature type spirit. We're going to talk about spirit strategies, top commanders for this particular tribe, and some of our favorite cards that just so happen to be creature type spirits.
Let's get spooky. I know I said let's get spooky, but I guess it's entirely possible that not all spirits are, in fact, spooky.
That's true.
Do you think all spirits are spooky? Maybe they are.
I mean,
are all spirits kind of spooky?
If any spirit existed on our planet Earth, I would say it's spooky. Whether or not it was like the spirit of something deceased or the spirit of something from another plane, I think a spirit is automatically going to be spooky unless it manifests physically and it doesn't actually seem like a spirit, and then it like tells you later on, and like the final chapter of the book turns out he was a spirit, then maybe it wasn't spooky.
You know, I'm realizing right now maybe we had a missed opportunity because there are spirits on Earth like vodka and tequila.
Oh yes.
And we didn't include any cards that were beverage based.
No beverage based cards. Can't even.
We didn't include Halo.
Oh, well, that's a different kind of spirit, I guess.
It's a different, well, it's the spirits of the angels that were sacrificed to make Halo, I guess.
Well, and what about the scene where Gideon died? You know, where everyone's spirits were broken. there was that too. Yeah. Sorry. Maybe that was too dark.
We could have included that. We could have. What is that? What is that card? It's Boros and it wheels and it's Gideon's friends. It's not called Gideon's friends.
Yeah, it doesn't have Gideon in the name.
No, it doesn't. It's a good card. But we're getting off topic. But that was related to spirits. So we wanted to chat because we don't really talk tribal and dive into individual tribes very often. And so we thought, this sounds really fun, and we haven't done it yet. So let's start off with one. So we were trying to figure out what creature type we wanted to start with, and we said, well, what if we did zombies or elves? And turns out those are like number 1 and like number 4 or something like that. And it's like, maybe let's start out with one that maybe is a little less popular. So spirits is the top 14th most popular tribe according to EDHREC.com. So we're gonna start with spirits. So Mike, what do you think about when you first think spirits?
Okay, so
in Magic?
I have a little bit of a story here, because when I first started playing Magic, I started playing when I first started playing Commander. I started playing with the Prosh Precon, which came with a card called Forbidden Orchard, which is a rainbow land that taps. So it taps for 1 mana of any color, and the downside of that is you had to give one of your opponents a 1/1 spirit. And I thought this card was garbage, because why would I give one of my opponents a creature that they can block my giant Prosh dragon with? And then I learned that spirit that you give doesn't have flying. And I realized that not all spirits have flying. So right off the bat, when I first started playing, like spirit, ghosts, those things fly, obviously. A spirit wouldn't be trapped to the ground. No, there are ground spirits. I hate ground spirits. I think ground spirits. I don't like ground spirits. Every time I have to draw like a spirit token and it doesn't have flying, I make sure to draw giant boots on it so people know that this thing doesn't have flying and it's on the ground. So first thing that I have to say is spirits. Spirits on the ground, not real spirits in my book. Quintorius Field Historian that makes 3/2 creatures of some type that I don't know, because they don't have flying, so they're not spirits in my book. That's
wow.
Yeah.
You know, I think about cards that I always wish were spirits and aren't spirits, and one of them is Child of Alara, the biggest spirit baby ever, right? And it's just an avatar.
Yes,
it's not a spirit. And but no, I think of blue white, honestly, is usually what I think of when I think of spirits, or I think of black white, because I used to play a Taste of Karlov deck, and I feel like I played with a decent amount of spirits. But I also think of Kakusho.
Oh, sure.
Because I used to lose to your mono black Kakusho deck, but it really had nothing to do with spirits and just sacrificing and looping that. So spirits have always killed me.
I'm surprised that Shirei doesn't come up there too, because Shirei is also a deck that cares nothing about spirits.
That one kills me in a different way. Yes. It's at how absolutely long every turn is. I'm kidding.
It kills you slowly at the rate of time, unfortunately.
It's not killing me softly, it's killing me slowly with his song. So let's talk about our favorite spirit. So we had a real hard time trying to figure out how many spirits we want to talk about, because on this show we could talk about all the cards and every show would be 3 hours long.
There's so many spirits.
So we picked 3, an arbitrary number that will keep us within the confines of your precious time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start out with one. It's a mono red spirit. It's actually really new, but this has done a ton of work for me. So this is Kami of Celebration, a 3/3 spirit for 4 and a red. It says whenever a modified creature you control attacks, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. And then it says whenever you cast a spell from exile, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. So I actually play this in my Exava Rakdos Blood Witch deck. So most people don't know what Exava is because no one plays the deck. So Exava is a 3/3 human cleric with first strike and haste. It's in Rakdos color, so 2 a black and a red with Unleash. So you can have Exava enter with a +1/+1 counter on it. And then if Exava has a counter on it, a +1/+1 counter on it, you can't block. But then it says each other creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has haste. So I know we talked about it when I put it together. Exava actually is super fun. The deck actually works. It has won games against decks it had absolutely no means of trying to compete with. it kind of just works. But Kamiya Celebration really helps that deck because turns out Modified is a really cool mechanic from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. And there's a lot of cards that care about +1/+1 counters that came from that set that give you card advantage or benefits of some sort. So Kamiya Celebration has kind of been that one. I would definitely say that Kamiya Celebration is one of those cards in Exava that makes the engine work. Like if you land Kamiya Celebration, you might I feel like I'm on the right path and I can stay in the game. It helps because I can exile the top card of my library, and if I attack with 5 modified creatures, which honestly feels like that almost always happens, I get to exile the top 5 cards of my library.
Oh yeah, no.
And that's a lot of card advantage. And if you can do it on your next turn when you've got all your mana up, assuming you've got 5 or 6 or 7 mana, you can cast all those spells, put +1/+1 counters on target creatures, and kind of just keep the train moving.
Yeah.
So I really like Kamiya Celebration. And it's not the typical blue-white spirit that I usually think of when I said when I think of spirits, I think of blue-white. It's in red, so completely outside of the scope of what I normally think of.
Yeah, really, really love this Kami myself. With all these effects that don't cost additional mana to get the +1/+1 counters, like your Unleashed from Exava, Master Chef, a brand new enchantment from our Baldur's Gate set, which gives commander creatures you own, they enter the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter, and all of your other creatures enter the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter. Really turns on all these modified cards. Like you said, Andy, if we could have longer lists, Kami of Celebration does actually end up at number 7 on my list. Number 6, another card from that set, Kodama of the West Tree, that also we've been seeing a lot. A card I'm sure you would play in Exava if you could play a green card.
If Exava could play green, yes, I totally would.
So that all your modified creatures can go fetch for basics. But really, really cool. I haven't had the opportunity to actually play my deck with Kami of Celebration in it yet, but I do look forward to all that card advantage. It's so much, especially in red. Good. I mean, it's great. I imagine so maybe black is a good color to have good card draw in there. But if you're mixing that Kami in with, I don't know, just a mono red deck, I guess would be really good for that amount of card advantage. But in Exava,
yeah, just random spells that are low mana value that you can cast, and then when you cast that, you get counters on creatures you currently have.
Yeah, it's
nice to put the counters on a creature to get it out of range of some spell someone has, or if someone has a Toxic Deluge, and if you can make your creature toughness 8, it's like, well, they are going to have to spend at least 8 then, and make them work for it. And so I guess Kami Celebration is top tier for me.
Yeah, you could do that in your own deck in Exava if you're also running your own Toxic Deluge. That's really cool.
I can put a counter. I can do it just out of range of my smallest creature, because then I can put a counter on that smallest creature.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so my first one, if you know me, you've seen this card so many times, and this card is probably remove on sight. That is Cryptghast. Cryptghast, my mono black king. Thank you very much for all of the wins you've given me in the past. Cryptghast for 4 mana, 3 in a black. You get a 2/2 spirit with a very magical keyword that I know Andy loves called Extort.
Love it so much.
So this Extort is a keyword that says whenever you cast a spell, you may pay a hybrid or a Jav, so either a white or a black. And since this is actually within the keyword itself, it actually does not count towards the color of the card. So Cryptghast is only mono black, not black white, because of Extort. So whenever you cast a spell, you may pay a black or white, and if you do, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain that much life. So if everyone is still alive in your pot of 4, you're going to gain 3 life every time you pay that extra mana. Cryptghast also says whenever you tap a swamp for mana, add black to your mana pool. So this is not a basic swamp, which is very, very nice, which makes it so Cryptghast actually does combo with Urborg, Tomb of Yogmoth, a legendary land that says each land is a swamp in addition to its other types, allowing you to play Cryptghast in more than just mono black or 2-color decks. That being said, if you don't have a way to fetch Urborg, I don't recommend playing Cryptghast in more than a 2-color deck. But this particular card, I played it in mono black decks all the time. I'm playing it in a couple 2-color decks right now. I am playing Urborg in all of them. The Extort mechanic is a win con in some decks, like Keurig, Son of Yogmoth, and those type of decks that are all about looping spells and constantly casting them and constantly using that Extort trigger. But on top of things, if you're playing mono black, you're probably paying a lot of life into a lot of your abilities, and you're going to need ways to get that life back. Why not for just an extra black mana, gain 3 life. I know I mentioned Kurek. With Kurek, you can actually just pay 2 life to activate the Extort ability, and you're going to then gain 3 life in total, so you end up netting 1 life, which is pretty cool.
Can I just say that I can't believe that this card has only been printed twice. I see it all the time, and it's still an affordable card. It's still under $10. It was printed in Gatecrash and then Commander 2014. It hasn't been printed since Commander 2014.
Yeah.
That's 8 years
And that's
ago.
in a pre-con deck, not even in like a set, right? Gatecrash was the only real like set it was printed in, the only foil version you could find.
Correct. So this is very low printing for what I feel like I see all the time. Maybe I don't see it all the time. Maybe I see just us playing it. I don't know. Cryptghast is really great. I play it in my mono black deck, Jaren Corrupted Bishop. I don't run mono black decks very often, and I don't think that I run Cryptghast in my 2 color decks that have black, but maybe I do. I don't play those decks as often as I do the other ones, I'll be honest. My Lysolda deck and my Karlov deck, I don't play those that often, so I couldn't tell you if there was Cryptghast.
I remember you did play it in Tesa back in the day, but I don't know if I've seen it recently.
I don't know if I've played Karlov in the last 5 months.
Okay.
I feel like I probably haven't, but it's probably in there. But another card that I run in Jaren Corrupted Bishop is the next card on my list, which is Mischievous Poltergeist. So I think it's a card that's not seen in most decks because of strategies, I guess, that it plays in. So Mischievous Poltergeist is a 1/1 spirit. Not ghost. It was printed ghost on both of its printings, but it's a spirit. For 2 and a black, it has flying and says pay 1 life to regenerate Mischievous Poltergeist. So to regenerate, you can pay a life, you tap the creature, and you remove it from combat, and the next time it would die, essentially, it just doesn't die. So I played it in Jaren Corrupted Bishop because the deck itself is a life exchange deck. So Jaren has an ability. There's a lot of text on Jaren, so I'm not going to go over it entirely, but I play with a lot of humans because whenever a non-token human you control dies or Jaren enters, you lose life and make a human token. And then you can give humans lifelink. And then Jaren, at the beginning of your end step, if you have exactly 13 life, you can pay 4 and 2 black to transform Jaren into the new Ormondal, which is a 6/6 flying trample lifelink that says you can sack another creature to draw a card. So you might say, wow, you just talked a lot about humans and nothing about spirits. But the reason I like Mischievous Poltergeist is because you can just pay 1 life immediately as many times as you want to stack that to get yourself to 13 life for Jaren. But because the deck is running lots of cards that allow me to exchange my life total with an opponent, I pay my life down to a point where I think that it's not uncomfortable. And then I trade my life away for your heftier life total after putting myself at maybe 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that's why I play Mischievous Poltergeist. It's pretty cool to give it away with like Profane Transfusion, which is target players exchange life totals, and then you make a horror that's XX power and toughness, where X is the difference between your life totals. So if you steal someone's life when they're at 40 and you're at 5, you make a 35/35 horror.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yeah,
it's pretty cool. Or like, Soul Conduit. It's an artifact, pay 6 and tap it. 2 players exchange life totals. So it's mostly used to reduce my life. It's not used in any other deck that I play it in, but I feel like every time that I see it, it's a spirit that I'm thrilled to have drawn.
Yes. I would say this is definitely very corner case. I have never seen this card before in my life. I have not played your Jaren deck more than probably 5 times, so that could be why. But yeah, I can't imagine another type of deck wanting to play a 3-mana 1/1 flyer that can pay life to regenerate itself. So yeah, that's the amount of notes that I had on this card for my personal use of this card. I've never.
I love that.
Yeah, right?
I love that for us. I love that. No, it's great. I like having cards that people don't see very often, and Mischievous Poltergeist is one of those. So if you're looking for a way to get your life total down, because maybe you play a life exchange deck, there's another option for you.
Speaking of cards that are not seen very often, this next mono green spirit is definitely one that has not plagued your play groups for the past, I don't know when this card was printed. Legions. Long time.
Forever ago. That Legion says the year 2003 on it. So.
There you go. So back when I was in 6th grade, the card Seedborn Muse was printed, which is in fact a spirit, a 2/4 spirit for 3 green that says untap all permanents you control during each other player's untap step. Man, is this card amazing strictly because it's a spirit? No, you get to untap all of your permanents on everyone's turn. If you have ways of using all of your mana from all of your untapped lands, your untapped artifacts, maybe your creatures have tap abilities, it's going to generate so much value for you all the time. I played this in my Reese the Redeemed deck back in the day, which has 2 different activatable abilities, 2 and a hybrid green-white to create a 1/1, or 4 and 2 hybrid green-white to double all of your tokens. So just for every token you control, make a copy of it. You get to untap all of your lands with Seedborn Muse, so like 6 mana on everyone's turn isn't that big of a deal. So you can copy your tokens like 4 times before it comes back to your turn in that deck, and it becomes ridiculous. And that's probably not even the most ridiculous thing you could do with the Seedborn Muse.
Yeah, I see it played in like Krufix decks where you can save your mana, so you untap, you tap it, and then Krufix God of Horizons in blue-green allows you to do that. I've seen it in mono-green Omnath, which does the same thing, just in mono-green, so you can pay green and you save the green mana in your mana pool because the mana doesn't leave empty as phases and turns end for either of those commanders. Seedborn Muse is great. Definitely a remove, kill on sight creature. You do. I like it. I have it in my Nakia of the Old Ways deck because I run Omnath in there, and then also just having the ability to untap, and I have a lot of creatures with abilities that I can activate, like the both Nyleas, the new and the older gods, they all have activated abilities, so I like to have my mana up. So I have a Seedborn Muse in there, and it's a creature based deck. So
I do still run this in my green-white land auras deck because it runs Helix Pinnacle for the same reason we talked about. Saving your mana every turn, feeding 100 mana into your Helix Pinnacle, you'll win the game.
Yeah. I like Soul Herder. That's my last spirit here. Soul Herder for a white and a blue. You get a 1/1 spirit that says whenever a creature is exiled from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Soul Herder. And then at the beginning of your end step, you may exile another target creature you control and return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So I run this in my Niv Mizzet Reborn Gates deck. So I can blink Niv Mizzet, comes back in. Niv Mizzet allows me to reveal the top 10 cards in my library. And for each color pairing, so of the guild colors, like white, green, white, blue, whatever, you get to pick one of each of those color pairings and put it into your hand. So it's a major card advantage. I don't think I've ever cared about the first ability to exile creatures and put the counters on Soul Herder. I'm never going to swing with it. I'm mostly just doing it for the blink value, but I think it's really, really cool that we have this as, another option. And I know, Mike, you added Conjurer's Closet and Teleportation Circle, which are artifacts or enchantments that essentially do the same thing for us. And Soul Herder, great card. Also, it's 2 color, so it works really well with my Niv Mizzet deck at face value.
Yeah, it's really cool that you can fetch that. I know you said it never gets big enough to really swing with. It doesn't have any sort of evasion or anything on it, which would be nice. I think in my Abdul Adrian deck, it might actually be able to get up to be a big enough target, but at that point people try to remove it too, and it doesn't have any sort of self-protection, no ward or anything on it. So creature is probably the easiest permanent type to remove, as we talked about in the past, so watch out for it, but chances are you have a blink or a flicker spell to protect it anyways.
Yeah, it's a good removal target, but most people, I don't think, really want to remove the Soul Herder. They want to remove the other problems. So Soul Herder can just become a nuisance when they've got three creatures that you would like to blink, and then a Soul Herder. You probably want to remove the creature that they could possibly blink. But
that's true.
It's a hard decision to make when you're in a game.
With these hypothetical board states in our brains going on right now. Yes. So let's finish out here with Selfless Spirit, a card that I just recently started running, a card that's plagued me in Standard for, when I first started playing this game of Magic the Gathering. So Selfless Spirit, a 2 mana Spirit Cleric for 1 and a white. You get a 2/1 with flying that says sacrifice Selfless Spirit. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. So just a wonderful creature-based way of giving your entire board state indestructible. I run this in my Rafine Scheming Seer deck because on top of it giving extra board wipe protection, which Rafine Scheming Seer has ward to protect it against individual. Obviously, you could just pay the ward cost to get around individual targeting, but at least it's a little bit of protection. Selfless Spirit allows protection from Rafine from board wipes and that kind of stuff. But on top of that, just being a 2-power flyer, get in for some extra damage and extra trigger from Rafine. It works really well in very certain decks, but just to have a creature-based thing. To give indestructible, I know that there's some spirit decks out there or some graveyard decks that have the ability to loop this, so maybe you can make your board indestructible every single turn.
Yeah, I honestly, if you can loop it, that's great. I view it as a heroic intervention that just sits on the battlefield. So for, like you mentioned, 1 and a green, you can just pay to give your creatures indestructible. And I think it's also, but that one gives hexproof too, since this one's just indestructible. I don't really care about the hexproof because I'm usually doing that in response to a board wipe. I'm not using heroic intervention for like a targeted removal usually. So Selfless Spirit is, I run it if it fits. I like having, people can see it then, and it makes people play different when the ability's sitting out.
And it's only 2 mana. You can block block a giant board and then sacrifice this in response to blocks before damage. All your other stuff that's blocking that survives. It has so much utility outside of the stuff we even talked about.
Exactly. So some top strategies for spirits. So I have played with spirits before with like an aristocrats deck. So if you played with the commander like Thalise, Reverend Medium, it's a 3/4 human cleric for 3 white and a black. It says at the beginning of each end step, you create X1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying, where X is the number of tokens you created this turn. I've seen a ton of decks just lean hard into creating tokens, and then you get lots of spirits, but because you're in white black, you have the ability to play with cards that when a creature dies, each opponent loses life and you gain life. I've seen those. And then I mentioned earlier, I've lost plenty of times to your Kakusho deck, which although it doesn't necessarily fit a spirit tribal deck, I guess it's a spirit itself, and if it's your only creature in this aristocrats deck, I think it counts as a spirit.
And on the same sort of wavelength, I've lost to your Timon and Rhoda deck, which could be seen as like the spirit side of the control. But I also don't think you run that as a spirit deck per se, but Timon itself being a spirit. And in the right color, the quote unquote right colors. I know we already talked about we're outside of blue white in so many of these things, but in the traditional colors of blue white for spirits.
And it's so funny that I think blue-white is spirits, because most of the things we talked about today, honestly, were not just blue-white. No. I actually had red, black, and then I did have a blue-white. So, I mean, I did in my top 3 there. But on the same side with Rhoda and Timon, we also have Brago King Eternal, which is a spirit. I don't know if Brago is playing a ton of spirits here, but it is a commander that could play a spirit tribal where you're playing with spirits that have enter the battlefield abilities. So Brago's a 2/4 flyer that when it deals damage to a player, you can exile any number of target non-land permanents you control and then return them to the battlefield under their owner's control. So you certainly can build it as spirit tribal, and there's plenty of spirits that have hexproof for when they enter the battlefield. A spirit gains hexproof. You tap things down or blink things to someone's hand. So I've seen the control strategy, but I think the most popular strategy that we've seen, and I think it's probably the most popular for a reason, is just like token swarm. I don't know what it is with tokens. I love them so much. I used to be a tokens person. I know that I kind of am like a self-proclaimed combo person, but I feel like I'm leaning more towards tokens again. Sure. It ebbs and flows. But Millicent, Restless, Revenant is a spirit token commander. So whenever it or another non-token spirit you control dies, you make 1/1 white spirits with flying. Kaikar, I didn't realize what could lean so heavily into spirits, and I never think about, but this is Jeskai spirits. So you got blue, red, white. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you can make a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying that you can then later sack for red mana. I'm surprised I don't see Kaikar as much as I used to. But again, there's so many new commanders coming out. Everyone wants to try the new stuff, you know.
And that's the thing. Like when Kaikar first came out, I saw Kaikar so much. I mean,
much.
Dude, Where's My Kaikars was a deck that I remember. It was a vehicles deck with Kaikar that was really cool to see. But it was played as a combo deck all the time. You just play all of your cantrips and your cards that, you know, produce a bunch of mana from red and stuff, create so many spirits. I've died to a coat of arms in a Kaikar deck. I don't know how many times. But I guess on that same avenue with the tokens, I mean, we've done 2 patron deck techs of red-white spirit token decks in Hoffrey Ghostforge and Quintorius Field Historian, despite the fact that Quintorius Field Historian makes 3/2. I don't know what creature types they are because they don't have flying. Quintorius does give spirits +1/+0. But yeah, no, we did in the Boros, the token strategies there. Quintorius makes those 3/2 red and white spirit creature tokens, and Hoffrey Ghostforge just turns all of your creatures into spirit creature tokens after they die. So interesting to see that even when you start, you know, stepping out into some of the other colors, that it's still sticking to that token strategy.
Spirits must have, I mean, at this point, then I think it's probably safe to say we've done more deck techs on spirits.
That's probably true.
I didn't even think about that, but let's take a look at the top 5 spirits commanders. So let's start with number 5, which is a mono black spirit, which is Iname Death Aspect, a 4/4 spirit for 4 black that says when it comes into play, you may search your library for any number of spirit cards and put them into your graveyard. If you do, shuffle your library. So you're playing mono black spirits, and there are so many mono black spirits to the point where I guess I didn't realize spirit was stapled onto so many cards. Yeah. Like Yargle is a frog spirit. I didn't realize it was a frog spirit. But it is playing cards like Sir Conrad, Cryptghast, which we mentioned earlier. I think this is a cool commander. I have seen it in the past. I actually believe one of our patrons, Roxanne, has an Inami Death Aspect deck. It was fun to play against. I haven't seen it in a while, but there's 155 of these on EDH Rec over the last 2 years. So obviously this is a commander that is still popular, at least for spirits, seeing as it came out a very long time ago in the original Kamigawa block.
Yeah, I was floored when I actually started going through and seeing all the different mono black spirits here. But I guess it was when we were coming up with our top spirits, I purposely left off Kokusho and Shirei because I talk about them all the time. But those would be my number 4 and 5 spirits here. But yeah, just going down this list and looking at all these spirits, even just legendary creature spirits, He Who Hungers, Infernal Kirin, Kyoki, Sanity's Eclipse. There's just so many of legendary creature spirits where this deck is just trying to put them all in the graveyard, mass reanimate them. And for the most part, the enter the battlefield or death triggers on all these spirits are interrupting your opponent's hands, making them discard, killing their creatures, draining life, all that kind of great things that mono black loves to do. But I'm just so surprised to see it supported so well, if I'm being 100% honest.
I feel like Spirit's one of those, it's easy enough to throw into a creature, maybe, you know, maybe some planes it's not as easy to just throw spirits around, but I would venture to say that you might get a fair amount of spirits, maybe often enough. I don't see a ton of new stuff here, but this is one of those decks where it's cool to get some new spirit that when you're playing it, someone goes, I didn't realize that was a mono black spirit.
Yes. Very cool. Well, number 4 on our list is our Jeskai Bird Wizard, Kaikar Wind's Fury. So for 4 mana, 1, a blue, a red, and a white, you get that 3/3 Bird Wizard with flying. It says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying, and you can sacrifice a spirit to add a red mana. So although it is built around creating your own 1/1 white spirit tokens to sacrifice for red, there's no reason why you can't sacrifice any of your non-token spirits in case you have ways of reanimating them. Obviously, like Hoffrey Ghostforge, a red-white creature we just talked about. Dwarf Cleric for 5 mana. mana spirits you control get +1/+1 and have trample and haste. And whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you exile it and you create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a spirit in addition to its other types. So cards like that are going to be fitting within your Jeskai color combination, allowing you to play with your graveyard a little bit. But in general, this deck is playing a lot of blue-white. Flying matters because Kaikar itself, he's not a spirit, or they are not a spirit, but they make spirits. So that's what you're going to focus on, generating those spirits and maybe playing some lords on top of that. You are within the traditional, I'll keep saying that word, blue-white color scheme for your spirit lords. It does seem that spirit lords outside of those colors seem to not exist very, very much from what I can see. So if you do want to play a bunch of the lords, so that the traditional lord spirit tribal, you might still have to stick within the blue-white color scheme.
Yeah, we'll probably see those being more heavily used elsewhere, but I like that you can use Joffrey and Quintorius here, and you don't have to necessarily rely on that. But number 3 here is Reynard the Ever Watchful. So this is a commander that just came out pretty recently. It's a 2/3 Spirit Warrior for 2, a white and a blue. It says Flying and Vigilance, and the first card you foretell each turn costs 0 to foretell. And whenever you exile one or more cards from your hand and or permanents from the battlefield, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So in this one, you are seeing the same popular cards here with lords that are playing with spirits, but you do get to play with some foretell cards, which is pretty cool. I don't know. This one feels very much like Vega the Watcher, which also is a deck that you have. And Vega the Watcher is a bird spirit itself. So whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, you can draw a card. So you can foretell it away. And then when you play it from being foretold, you get to draw a card because of Vega. Reynard is cool. It's actually one that I think it was a flash in the pan commander, and I don't actually think I've ever played against the Reynard deck. I've played against Vega far more often, and I think it's only because you have a Vega deck.
Yeah, I think it is a little disappointing that I didn't get to play against it, because there was an infinite combo with Rest in Peace and a Sacrifice Outlet that went with Reynard. Reynard being the face commander from one of the Kaldheim precons.
Commander.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe I would have felt bad if someone just like got me out of nowhere with that combo, but I don't know. I wanted to see it once. If you have a Reynard deck and you're coming to Command Fest Indy, find me and play against us. Because
Coyle loves playing against Rest in Peace.
Rip.
And combos. So
it's true.
Yeah, there you go.
It's true. Those are the two things I do love playing against. So let's go to 5 colors, because we haven't done that yet. And as we talked about in our top spirits, there's really good spirits in all 5 colors. So we have Ogakachi Vengeful Kami for 6 mana, 1 and Wooburg, white, blue, black, red, and green. You get a 6/6 dragon spirit with flying and trample that says whenever Ogakachi Vengeful Kami deals combat damage to a player, if that player attacked you during his or her last turn, exile target non-land permanent that player controls. So other than being a spirit itself, I don't think Ogakachi is really bringing much to the table for spirits.
No,
but
I agree.
Opening it up to 5 colors, I suppose, so you can start playing everything.
I appreciate seeing this over Morophon.
Sure.
I will say that, because Morophon does feel like maybe the cheater's way of getting into a tribal deck, but it does certainly fill in where there are creature types that don't have 5 colors, and you do want to play a creature themed deck around it. But what I like is how many dragon spirits there are, because this deck plays with dragons and spirits, because Okakachi is a dragon. Not that creature type matters, period, at all for Okagachi Vengeful Kami. It doesn't. There's nothing on this card that says dragons or spirits benefit from really anything. It just cares about if someone attacked you during your last turn.
It just happens to be a spirit. That's all.
It just happens to be a spirit. And I think a lot of the top cards being dragon spirits just happens to be that. I think this is the deck where you can play both dragons and spirits, and then just generic cards that pump certain tribal cards. So when this comes in, choose a creature type. Creatures of that type get plus X of whatever it is. And depending on what you have, you can either choose dragons or spirits, but it looks like in most cases, most things are dragons and spirits.
I know there's a bunch of cards that care, like if it shares a creature type with your commander. So yeah, stuff like that's going to work out well. But yeah, all the Kamigawa dragons are dragon spirits. I don't know if Okakachi is a Kamigawa spirit or not.
Yes, I believe it is, but it was referenced and they finally gave it a commander card. Don't quote me. Literally the flavor text. Yeah, at his behest, the Kami War began to regain that which was taken, which is also a card. So definitely a Kamigawa spirit.
Kamigawa dragon spirits. The deck. Gotta love it.
You gotta love it. Let's get to number 1 here. We're at Millicent, Restless, Revenant, a 4/4 spirit soldier for 5 white and a blue, 7 mana. That's pretty scary. But wait, it says this spell costs 1 less for each spirit you control. Oh, okay, it's not 7. It's probably gonna most of the time be 2, maybe 3. Who knows? Has flying, and then like I mentioned earlier, whenever Millicent, Restless, Revenant, or another non-token spirit you control dies, or deals combat damage to a player. I actually think that I forgot to leave that. I think I left that off earlier. You create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So when it or another non-token spirit dies or deals combat. So this is happening every turn. Your spirits are just getting larger. You've got a little spirit army happening here. You make more spirits. And I think one of the turnoffs is when I see a commander that costs 7. It's so difficult to play them out. It really is. But costing 1 less for each spirit, you could probably play this on 4 or 5 pretty easily. And then you're swinging with those spirits that you had, which is going to make it even cheaper when someone says, no, I will remove Millicent. You go, okay, well, I've got 9. So
yeah. Well, and
this is going to cost a lot less.
And there's a few cards out there actually that care about, they get reduced costs depending on the mana value of your commander. So in this case, it being 7, even though it's only going to cost 2 or 3 every time you cast it, is a super, super huge benefit for cards like that. I don't know if they fit within blue-white. The only one I could think of, is Giant's Belt in green, but don't quote me on that one either. So I know there are cards that care about the mana value of your commander, where the higher the mana value it is actually better. So
and I like Inspiring Leader here. It is a background. Obviously, you can't have it in the command zone, but I haven't seen a background that fits so perfectly with the commander, maybe until now. But Inspiring Leader says commander creatures you own have creature tokens you control get +2/+2. So now Millicent just makes all your spirits 3/3s.
It's so strong. It's so strong.
It is so strong, and I like all the cards here. You're playing just generic spirit lords as well. Supreme Phantom, which gives other spirits +1/+1. Drog Skull Captain to give them +1/+1, and Hexproof. It's a solid deck.
Yeah.
Other Patrician Geist, other spirits get +1/+1, and then spirits you cast from your graveyard cost 1 less to cast, so you can play cards like Catilda from your graveyard, which has Disturb.
See, and it also plays Empyrean Eagle, and let me tell you why Empyrean Eagle is so important. Empyrean Eagle is important because it only buffs real spirits. Empyrean Eagle is a 1 blue and a white 2/3 bird spirit with flying that says other creatures you control with flying get +1/+1. So it only will give your real spirits, the ones that can fly, not your garbage ground spirits, the +1/+1. And it itself is a spirit, so it does count.
Okay, it counts. It's a bird spirit.
That's right.
It's a spooky bird spirit that is also flying down in the artwork, so I can play it in my bird deck.
Do you play it in your bird deck?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes, you have to do that. So that was the top 5. I did not expect to see mono black. I also didn't expect to see a 5 color. When we were prepping for this episode, this was the last thing that I pulled, because I said I don't want to be affected by, or I don't want my preparation to be affected by the top 5 that we have. So I got those first, and then we put together the strategy for spirits. And then we went to the top commanders. I said, oh, that was not what I saw coming.
Yeah, I'm very surprised, honestly, to see Ogakachi instead of, like you said, Morifon. But obviously, people are just more creative deck builders than me out there who want every single.
They don't cheat. Hey,
you. I'm just saying, Morifon, it's still to this day, I think, is the best human tribal commander. So I don't know.
I don't know. Jarina Kudrow would like a word.
Okay.
Even though you're in 3 colors, I don't know.
That's fair. I mean, that's a good argument. Jarina Kudrow versus Morph, the podcast. It's coming to ears near you.
Yes. And that's going to bring our episode this week to an end. If you want to find me on Twitter to chat more, you can find me at Andy Floyd.
And you can find me at Wormcoil Engine. You can find both of us at Command Fest Indy this weekend. Look at our faces.
We'll have a bunch of those. Yeah, you can see our eyes behind, you can see our eyes because we'll have masks
That's
on.
right.
And we will also have playtest cards with us. So if you are interested in getting a Guardian Project playtest card, stop us. We will have those with us.
We're bringing our unsleeved deck. So if you want to jam a game and have an opportunity to maybe get to sign one of the cards in our deck, then stop us and do that
and let us beat you.
I don't know. last time we were at Command Fest Chicago, we were recording just a bunch of random content. We did a bunch of 30-second deck text. So maybe we'll do something silly like that again. So if you catch us and if we're recording some content, just hey, can I be in your video or something? I wouldn't mind that. I don't know if you would, Andy, but maybe
I didn't know we were doing a video. We're doing a video now. I mean,
we're gonna take photos. We're gonna take if we're taking just like a random video. You remember when I just stood by the playmats randomly and put my 2 thumbs up and says, "Hey, we should record that video," and then I had to do it a second time. Felt weird, but hey, what if someone else wants to be in that video? If you want to
give 2 thumbs up and we awkwardly record you, you too can participate. That's what I'm learning.
Of course, we want to give a special thanks to Ryan Nichols and Chris Wolf, who handles all of our editing and our graphic design. You can check out all their stuff on all of our socials and our website. And to all of you listeners out there, if we don't see you at Command Fest Indy, we will talk to you again next week.